so glad that you've joined us for worship on this Sunday morning. I invite you to see the focus card that you have in your bulletin. Fill that out for us and drop it in the offering plate as it comes by later in the service. Let us know you're here. And as always, there are many opportunities listed on the back of ways you can get involved in the life and service of this church. So we invite you to take advantage of that as well. I want to let you know that we are having our monthly potluck after service today. So I hope everybody will plan on just coming on down to the fellowship hall as we finish up. We're going to have fried chicken because we're Methodist and that's what we do. And it's going to be a good meal, so I'm looking forward to sharing that time with you. Also want to let you know about a couple things coming up. The Joy Makers are having a trip on October 24th. You can see a sign-up sheet on the bulletin board out in the hallway. And also we have Hall of Treats coming up on October 31st, also known as Halloween. It's going to be a fun time. Me and my family will be in our Toy Story costumes, greeting and welcoming everyone. So there are many ways that you can be involved in that. You can help us by being here and handing out candy. If you can't do that but just want to contribute to that, you can bring some candy. We're also going to be serving some dinner, so there's going to be some help needed there. And also something that I always think is incredibly important is that we have some people who are here not to do any of those things, but just to sit and eat dinner with our guests. So I hope that some of you will take the opportunity to be in the fellowship hall and share dinner with the guests from our neighborhood who join us that evening. Again, it is great to be with you this morning. I invite you to stand as we continue into our service of worship.
Giving us your Spirit and allowing us this opportunity, this moment to say thank you, praise you, and to lift your name up because yours is the name above all other names. So God, be with us here today, be in our midst. And God, we just give the service over to you. Let your will be done. God, we thank you and praise you. And all those people said, amen. Let's continue worshiping with Shall We Gather at the River. Let's sing verses 1, 2, 3.
Thank you.
going, everybody? How's it going?
Good.
Good.
Kind of bad because it's the end of fall break.
Kind of bad because it's the end of fall break. I feel that. I understand. I still had to work last week. I didn't get off last week, but I get it. It's all right. It's all right. Speaking of fall break and taking the break, have any of you heard of the word Sabbath? No?
Yes.
Yes? No? Yeah, kind of a weird word, but it's a very important one in the Bible. And there's this idea in the Bible called Sabbath rest. Do you remember what God did in the book of Genesis? When He created everything for 6 days. What did He do on the seventh day? He did create 7 days. He did what? He rested. Yes, God Almighty Himself worked for 6 days and took a day off.
Yeah.
Because He was... And God, throughout the Bible, tells us to do the exact same thing. And you know, if we're going to be honest, we're not always very good at it. Now, it may be easier for you all, but it's a bit harder for us who are a little older. Harder for us to find days to take off. But it's something that God tells us to do, and something that all of us need to do. Because if we don't rest, then that is us saying that we think we're better than God. Because God needed a day off. God needed rest. And if we think that we can't do it, if we think that we can't go and go and go and never try to relax, never try to take a break, never try to take a nap, I love naps. Then that's us trying to say that we can do more than God can. And we can't do that. So I hope fall break has been restful. I hope you've enjoyed that. And I hope that every day you find a chance to just sit down for a minute, take some quiet time, and just get some rest. Because God wants to spend some time with us. And that's the best way we can do it. Sound good? All right, let's pray. God, we are so thankful. We are so thankful for you. We are thankful for the instructions that you give us. Because we know that when you tell us to do something or not to do something, we know that it's for our best interest. And so I pray that all of us would be good at taking Sabbath, at resting in you, at spending time with you, and allowing ourselves to recover and recharge and experience you. I pray your blessing on thee, my brothers and sisters, your children, as they go to continue in worship. I pray that they will feel the power of your Spirit and that they will be transformed as they learn about your word and learn more about you. I pray the same thing for all of us who will remain in this place. And we ask it in the name of your Son, Jesus, and in the power of the Holy Spirit. Amen. All right, y'all can go off to Miss Kelly.
For the rest of us, let's stand and sing. God will take care of you.
Thank you.
take care of us. Through every day or all the way, whether it's good, whether it's bad, God is always there. So as we go to the time of prayer, I wonder if anyone has any praises from this past week, or where God has maybe taken care of you this past week. Where can you celebrate? Yes.
We took a family vacation, and it was great. We were on the road, and we didn't have any troubles, and we got to go visit my dad for the first time down in Florida. So we had a great week, and I'm very blessed that we got to spend that time together.
Great. Praising God for an amazing week, being able to travel, and God taking care of them through all their travel this past week. Who else? Yes, Bob.
Got my mother.
Welcome, Ms. Kathleen.
Thank you.
We took teenagers Rockwell and they all did.
I knew this. Yes, Mr. George.
Diane and I got to go down to Florida also. We got to spend time with family. It was my mom's 90th birthday.
Oh, wow.
And all the kids were there, and she was shocked because we came great distance. It was a blessing to us.
That's great. Being able to celebrate his mom's 90th birthday and all the family that was coming for it. Yes, Ms. Rose.
Last weekend, we got to spend Saturday and Sunday with our granddaughter bowling in Louisville. On Saturday, her team came in second in the tournament of about 30 teams, so that was a great day for her.
Congratulations. Yes, Ms. Robin.
Answered prayers.
Yes. Who else? Yes, Ms. Mara.
Wow, but we had a great celebration. Two great. Mother was here, which was really nice, because I didn't know. But we went to Louisville yesterday and hiked in the forest for 5 miles. We all went back.
Tomorrow, your family that hiked for 5 miles yesterday at the local. Great to be in nature. And just having that moment, I know for me, one of the places that really gets me is being around water. Really careful, and so it's the one place I can go, and there's just something, there's God's presence there in nature. Who else has a praise this morning? Yes.
My niece Megan is improving, but she still needs prayer.
Great. Her niece that we prayed for, I think last Sunday or the Sunday before, is now doing better, so keep remembering her niece Megan. So that will transition us. So who has any prayer requests this morning that we can lift up? Yes, Robert. The Shakedi, Kenny, and Damon. Who else?
Family, Gene and Emma.
Mark Williams and Howard Bill.
Mark Williams and Howard Dillon. Who else? Jane Rayner. Yes.
Teresa Howard.
Teresa Howard.
Pray for my dad, Matt Parker, he's having some health problems last week, and he's not doing well, so we're going to do a check back, so.
Julie asked prayers for her father, Matt. Yes, Teresa. Yes. For the Kirchner family. Yes.
Thomas Hurt.
Thomas Hurt. Abby. Yes. All great comes to a close for everyone
Pray for the
in
teacher.
our area. Yes, pray for our teachers, and one of those we need to remember is Molly is actually hopefully coming back from Japan today. So pray for her and her students and all of that. So, who else? Robin.
First, my cousin Carl, he's got recurring pancreatic cancer, and he's calling out to do any further treatment.
Elizabeth Madariaga.
Elizabeth Madariaga and his case.
Ed's grandmother passed away yesterday, so we'll be heading up to Illinois this week. So we won't go home, but for his family.
Pray for all the family. Who else?
Barbara Perkins, her 45-year-old daughter, Angela Morrow, died of a heart attack.
Remember that family as well. Keep remembering my father who is in stage 4 pancreatic cancer. There has been treatment. I haven't heard anything more about how he's progressing, but please remember him as well. Yes, Lamar. So remember Greg's grandmother, she's got a decision on whether to go through heart surgery or not, so. Anyone else this morning?
Josh,
Yes.
there's a group in Thailand, started, they left last week, they're going to be gone for 2 weeks, they're with the Methodist conference, and they're over working with some individuals with with trafficking issues, sex trafficking, and they're working with them, just praying for them as they go through, and, that what they do will make a difference.
Yeah, Linda reminds us there's actually a United Methodist volunteers on mission that took a mission trip from Kentucky to Thailand. They'll be there for a couple weeks, so pray for them and their mission work working with human trafficking. And as always, remember our men and women in the armed forces, our local police officers, state police, EMTs, fire department, and emergency dispatchers. But as we go to the time of prayer this morning, be mindful the altar is open, so if you would like to come forward and kneel here, stand and pray, you can do that as well. Let's go to the Lord in prayer this morning. God, your word tells us to be still and know that God. God, you heard Brady this morning mention people that are traveling and have traveled and been with family and celebrated birthdays and God, you have done a great and mighty act in our lives this past week. So God, we give you praise and we thank you. We thank you for how many ways you are God and reminding us that we are not. My God, even in the difficult times, even in the bad days, even in the stressful, the anxiety-laden, the worrisome moments that we experience, even in those times, you are the same God, yesterday, today, and forevermore. God, have we sung the song that you will take care of us. And no matter how dismayed our hearts may be, the message is you care for each one of us. And you call us by name. God, too often in our own minds we think of the many ways that, well, you're with that family, you're with that person. Look at what you're doing in their life. And as self-centered as a society as we are, we think that you don't care about us. That you care about everyone else. And God, that is so far from the truth. God, you, in Psalm 139, it tells us that you knit each one of us together in our mother's womb. That even before we were born, you knew our name. And that you have a plan and a purpose for each one of us. None of us here today is here by accident. God, as we think of all the names, the families, all those people near and dear to our hearts that we said aloud, We know that you care for them just as much as you do us. We know that you're going to be taking care of them. And even if that name, even if that prayer request is not mentioned out loud, but lives and dwells within our hearts, God, you know us so intimately that even those prayer requests, those things that we didn't even mention, that you are going to take care of them as well, because you love us. But God, I pray this morning that we would, you remember all the ways that you care for us, the way you take care of us, and the ways that you protect us and watch over us. And even when your disciples, your close friends came and asked you, Jesus, how do we pray? You cared for them enough to give them the Lord's Prayer that we know and that we recite now. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory forever. Amen. We will continue to worship this morning. Now we will go into a time of offering. But would ask that the ushers would come forward. Let us pray over the offering this morning. God, we thank you and praise you that we get to do a good and mighty work this morning. God, we know and we celebrate how much you have blessed us. So now as we get ready to give back to you, God, I would pray that you would be with each giver, each family, each person. That we can and we choose to give back to you how much you have blessed us. And God, I also think of us in the church, administrators and leaders, and I pray that you would help us to be good stewards. That you would help us and lead us and guide us to be able to do the work that you have us to do with the offering. Be with the gift, the giver, and also the church as it receives. God, we thank you and praise you. Amen. Thank you.
May the gods do whatever they want to me if by this time tomorrow I haven't made your life like the life of one of them. Elijah was terrified. He got up and ran for his life. He arrived at Beersheba in Judah and left his assistant there. He himself went farther on into the desert a day's journey. He finally sat down under a solitary broom bush. He longed for his own death. It's more than enough, Lord. Take my life because I'm no better than my ancestors. He lay down and slept under the solitary broom bush. Then suddenly a messenger tapped him and said to him, "Get up! Eat something." Elijah opened his eyes and saw flatbread baked on glowing coals and a jar of water right by his head. He ate and drank and then went back to sleep. The Lord's messenger returned a second time and tapped him. "Get up," the messenger said. "Eat something because you have a difficult road ahead of you." Elijah got up, ate and drank, and went refreshed by that food for 40 days and nights until he arrived at Horeb, God's mountain.
And this is the word of God, people of God, and our response is to say,
Thanks be to God.
You may be seated. We have a special treat this morning. We got our own Larry Ogan who's going to be leading us with a special song this morning. Thank you, Larry.
Are you tired of chasing pretty rainbows? Are you tired of spinning round and round? Wrap up all the shattered dreams of your life at the feet of Jesus, lay them down. Give them all, give them all, give them all to Jesus. Shattered dreams and wounded hearts and broken toys. Give them all, give them all to Jesus, and He will turn your sorrows into joy. He never said you'd only see sunshine. He never said there'd be no rain. He only promised a heart full of singing about the very things that once caused pain. Give them all, give them all, give them all to Jesus. Shattered dreams and wounded hearts and broken toys. Give them all, give them all to Jesus. He will turn your sorrows into joy. He will turn your sorrows into joy.
Thank you, Larry. Pray with me. God, we are thankful today for the reading and the hearing of your word. We're thankful for the way that your Spirit has already been moving among us in our worship this morning. I pray that as I now seek to proclaim your word, that the words that I speak would be yours and not my own. And that each of us, including myself, will have our hearts and our minds open to hear what it is you have to say to us. To hear the calling that you have for us on this day. Amen. Well, good morning again, everybody. It is good to be with you. I'm excited this morning. The last 2 weeks, last week I was very excited to talk about communion because I'm very passionate about communion. And this week I'm very excited again because I'm talking about Sabbath. And I'm very passionate about Sabbath. And I'm going to talk in a few minutes about why I'm a little frustrated at myself because I'm not doing very good at Sabbath in this current season of life. We'll get to that in just a minute. But, you know, it's life, right? We're all busy. We all have things to do. You know, you get up, and I try to get up a little bit before anyone else does. I usually got about an hour and a half before any of the other living creatures in my house are awake, including the cat. And so I sit there and I try to get about an hour and a half to myself, and then, you know, one kid wakes up and you gotta feed that kid, and then the next kid wakes up and you gotta feed that kid, and then we're up and then we're getting ready, and then we're going to work, and we're running errands, and then we're coming home, and we're playing with kids, and we're doing more chores, and we're doing more errands, and then we're cooking dinner, and then we're eating dinner, and then dinner's over, and then we're going back to church for a meeting, and then we're coming back from church, and then we're putting the kids to bed, and you're sitting down, and you're like, what happened? 2 blessed hours. And then usually the end of the day for me doesn't turn into 2 hours. It usually turns into about an hour and a half and then half an hour doing this on the couch. We all have it, right? We're all busy. We all have things to do. It doesn't matter if you're working, if you're retired, it doesn't matter if you're old or if you're young. We all have things to do. And sometimes I feel like we can look at how we, you know, some people still play a little paper calendar. For me, we pull out the phones and the iPads and look on there. We can look at our calendar, we can look at our schedule, and sometimes I feel like we look at it, and instead of giving it a real honest assessment for what we see, we go, I've arrived. I'm so busy. I have so much to do. People demand my time. I am so important and useful. This is what Jesus must have meant when he said life to the full calendars. Do we think that that's what Jesus was talking about when he told us that we were going to have life to the full? A full calendar, a full schedule, the inability to ever stop for just a second? I don't think so. I don't think it was. A few weeks ago, in our, we have, you know, we all probably have these too now. They're like family group texts that you go back to, you know, everyone, that's where you text the whole family. And so we have one with Quinlan's family, and I have a picture for us this morning of a little meme that my sister-in-law shared in the group text a few weeks ago. It resonated with me deeply. Let's see if we can find it here. Is relevant to our scripture reading for today. This is your gentle reminder that one time in the Bible, Elijah was like, God, I'm so mad I want to die. So God said, here's some food. Why don't you have a nap? So Elijah slept, ate, and decided things weren't so bad. Never underestimate the spiritual power of a nap and a snack. She sent that to us, and I read that, and I was like, oh yes, because I knew I was preaching on the Sabbath in a few weeks, and I had completely forgotten about this passage from Elijah's story in 1 Kings chapter 19. It's one of my favorite stories. You know, this is the beginning of a chapter that follows one of the more well-known events in Elijah's life. The encounter that he had with the prophets of Baal. And you may remember the story where Elijah gets together with all of the prophets of Baal, and they each build an altar. And the agreement is, the bet basically, is that if your God competition. And the priests and the prophets of Baal, they get around their altar and they make it all conducive to fire, and they're dancing around all this good stuff, and nothing happens, of course, and Elijah actually makes fun of them, which is also one of my favorite parts of the Bible. He's like, oh, maybe you need to talk louder, maybe your God can't hear you. But that's just Elijah's personality, I guess. And then it comes to Elijah, and he's made this altar, and he's got it soaking wet, whatever else, and he just basically says, God, help me out here, and boom, we got some fire, right? And so Elijah wins the contest. He proves that Yahweh is real. But this, of course, makes Ahab, and especially Jezebel, the king and queen of Israel, who are big fans of Baal, it makes them upset. And so she decides, guess what, Elijah? I'm going to kill you. And so Elijah has had a long and a stressful life. He's had a very busy life. He continues to have a busy life. He's a very important guy, and there are a lot of demands on his time. And now here he is, instead of getting all the thanks and the gratitude that he would like for being such a busy and important person, instead he's getting death threats. And so he runs away, and he gets into the wilderness. And he's like, God, I'm done. I'm done. I'm exhausted, terrified. I'm just done. And God tells him to sleep. And when he wakes up, God has provided him with food. And Elijah is cared for. And yeah, he realizes that things aren't that bad. Sure, the king and the queen are trying to kill him. Sure, he's working against, strongly rooted systems and priests and powers and principalities, and everyone is against him and no one's on his side. But it's not all that bad. Because God is taking care of him. Because he's been able to take care of himself. And when we read Elijah's story, and as you continue in 1 Kings chapter 19, I think you see a few things that resting does for us. The first one is in the verses, again, one of the more popular passages from Elijah's life, which is immediately after our passage today. And it tells us, beginning in verse 9, after he's arrived at Horeb, it says, there he went into a cave and spent the night. The Lord's word came to him and said, why are you here, Elijah? Elijah replied, and I love this too, right? Because Elijah's already basically said this to God. But now that he's had a nap, now that he's had some food, now he and God can actually have a conversation. He says, I've been very passionate for the Lord God of heavenly forces because the Israelites have abandoned your covenant. They have torn down your altars, and they have murdered your prophets with the sword. I'm the only one left, and now they want to take my life too. The Lord said, go out and stand in the mountain before the Lord. The Lord is passing by. A very strong wind tore through the mountains and broke apart the stones before the Lord, but the Lord wasn't in the wind. After the wind, there was an earthquake, but the Lord wasn't in the earthquake. After the earthquake, there was a fire, but the Lord wasn't in the fire. After the fire, there was a sound. Thin. Quiet. When Elijah heard it, he wrapped his face in his coat. He went out and stood at the cave's entrance. A voice came to him and said, why are you here, Elijah? I love this story because we are always tempted to look for God in the grand and powerful and in the dramatic. It fits, right? This is God Almighty, God of the heavenly forces, as the way this translation said. This is the same God who came down upon Mount Sinai in smoke and in fire. But Elijah heard God in silence. And I don't believe that Elijah would have been able to hear God if he hadn't taken some time to rest. When we rest, we are able to hear God, and we don't have to go looking for Him in the big, the bold, and the dramatic, but when we're able to rest, we are able to hear God in the quiet and in the stillness. when He wants to come meet us. The other thing that it does for us, I think we see in verses 14 through 18. In verse 14, Elijah repeats what he just told the Lord. And beginning in 15, the Lord said to him, "Go back through the desert to Damascus and anoint Hazael as king of Aram. Also anoint Jehu, Nimshi's son, as king of Israel. And anoint Elisha from Abel-Meholah, Shaphat's son, to succeed you as prophet. Whoever escapes from the sword of Hazael, Jehu will kill. Whoever escapes from the sword of Jehu, Elisha will kill. But I have preserved those remaining in Israel, totaling 7,000, all those whose knees haven't bowed down to Baal and whose mouths haven't kissed him." Well, I love this because God is of absolutely no help to Elijah's problem. Right? He says, "I've been passionate and there's no one else. I'm the only one left and these people want to kill me." And God says, "Yeah, that's great. Okay, go back to work." But you know, Elijah is in this moment and he's had this massive confrontation with the powers of the world, with these people who support and who worship the god Baal, the false god, and nothing seemed to change because of it, right? It just made everything worse. It made them out to kill him more than they even were before. And so at that moment, you can get to that point and you say, what's next? What do I even do? Where do I go from here? But when we rest and we're able to hear God, then God is able to give us that great thing. He is able to give us clarity. He is able to give us direction. He is able to give us vision. And when we can hear God, then we can hear His instructions and we can do what He wants us to do. We don't have to wonder about what we can do. We don't have to come up with the ideas. We don't have to figure out the situation. God didn't explain to Elijah how any of this was going to help. But He told Elijah what to do. And the chapter ends in verses 19 through 21. It ends with Elijah going and doing it. And so when we have moments of rest, then we are able to hear God. We are able to know what God wants us to do. And we are able to have the strength that we need to go do it. Now, admittedly, this is not a passage that is explicitly about the Sabbath as a specific command. But I think it's obvious that this is a passage that can tell us a lot about what God is going to do with us when we take the time to rest. And I truly believe that the Sabbath and a calling to Sabbath and a calling to Sabbath rest is one of the most countercultural teachings that we have as Christians in this day. The idea that we have a God who took the time to rest, and the idea that our God is one who expects us to rest as well, is, I believe, one of the more countercultural teachings in the entire Christian faith. I also think it is one of the most life-giving teachings in the Christian faith. Because we are not good at resting. We are not good at resting. And our culture, the American culture, doesn't want us to be good at resting. There is an idol in our lives. There is an idol in our culture that we are tempted and challenged to worship more than God. And it's given a nice, shiny, attractive name. It's called the American Dream. The American Dream is a false idol that our culture has created and put upon us. The underlying belief in the American Dream is that if you work hard enough and you work long enough, then you will succeed. Success equals more money. And so our culture tells us that we need to work harder, we need to work longer, we need longer shifts, we need more days, we need busier schedules, fuller calendars, more activities. We do this to our kids all the time. How many times can we tell our kids, this is going to look great on your college application? More extracurriculars, more tests, more activities, more, work, do, and you will succeed. This is a false idol. That ultimately the result is that it brings us around to worship ourselves. Worship our own abilities, our own passions, our own desires, rather than what God has called us to do and to do. And it is a great tragedy of the American church that too often we in the church emulate it rather than work against it. I was on a coaching call this last week. I had a ministry coach that I got through the conference for free. Woo! Yes, I did. As part of the transition from one into this new role. And I was on my call with him last week, and he said, I was unable to track down the quote. I think it was Leonard Sweet who he said it, but I couldn't find where. The quote's still good no matter who said it. He said, people came to church looking for a community, and we gave them a committee. We Methodists are really good at that. People came to church looking for a community, and we gave them a committee. The reality is, because we are who we are, right? We're raised in the culture that we're raised in, and we're exposed to the practices that we're exposed to. As churches, way too often, instead of making disciples, we are much better at making programs and policies and fundraisers. And we can have all the programs and all the policies and all the fundraisers that we want, but I can tell you right now that not a single one of them is going to be life-giving. The only thing that's going to bring about is going to be program fatigue, policy fatigue, fundraiser fatigue. And we won't have made any disciples, which is what we're here to do. And Sabbath is such a difficult thing for us to have because the society around us prevents us from having it. And what are we doing as the church when we are just adding on to the busyness of people's lives? What are we doing as the church when people see the things that we do as just something else that has to be done? And I'll tell you this. As long as I'm the pastor here, Sabbath rest is going to be a core value of the way that we live our life together as a church. We are going to live our life together as a church in a way that promotes and enables you and all of us to have times of rest, to spend time with our family, to spend time with God. Because what is the first thing that goes out the window when we are pursuing that false idol, when we are filling our calendars, when we are filling our schedules? The first person that we neglect is God. And the next person or people are our families. And so one of the things that we're already doing, I had a meeting with our ministry and administrative team leaders a couple weeks ago. It was a great Methodist style meeting. It was a meeting to plan meetings. And so we did the work, and we started the work of laying out our entire calendar for our ministry and administrative team meetings for the year 2020 with the objective of knowing that we will only have one night every week at this church where meetings will be happening. Because we have leaders in this church who overlap on all kinds of teams and in all places of service. And if I'm asking people to be at this church 4 or 5 days a week, in the evenings after they get off work, then we are not allowing people times of rest. We're going to do what we need to do as a community to make sure that we are all enabled to rest in God's presence. But then, and here comes the tough, but then we actually have to do it. And I'll tell you right now, I'm doing a terrible job of it right now. For years, ever since, for years, the whole time of our marriage, and even a little bit before, Saturday has always been my Sabbath. Saturday's been my Sabbath. I've been committed to it. I've been intentional about it. We've been intentional about it as a family. There were things that, there are always exceptions. I know that as I'm talking about this, I'm not talking about a legalistic practice of Sabbath. There are always exceptions. But when it came to anything that would be a regular commitment on a Saturday, that would be work for me instead of rest, we wouldn't do it. We weren't willing to make those kinds of commitments. And now, of course, because this always happens to us preachers, we make a transition, right? We come to a new place. We maybe get a little bit of a bloated sense of self-importance. And we start thinking that there's so much work that we have to do. The whole world is going to fall apart if we don't do it. The morning time, so I set aside this time in the morning every single day so that I can have time for my personal spiritual disciplines, so I can have time for my personal time of enjoyment, so that I can have those moments for myself. I'm not using them for that right now. I'm using it for work. On Saturdays, there have been way too many Saturdays when I've been working on a sermon. And a few weeks ago, many of you know, I got sick a few weeks ago, and I know exactly what it was. It was my body saying, no, you're done. Sit down. Because that's eventually what will happen to us. And so I'm recommitting to it. I'm recommitting to it. Because eventually we just have to do that. And eventually we're going to mess up again. But then we just got to recommit again. And something that I want you to know on the communal perspective as well, it is always okay for you to say no to me. It is always okay for you to say no to one of our ministry team leaders. It is okay, always okay, for you to say no when you are asked to serve here in a particular way. Because here's the thing, you can always say no to me, but I never want you to say no to God. And I'm pretty sure that there's going to come a time when you're going to be asked to do something in this church, and we're going to be wanting you to do it, but God is going to be wanting you to say no and want you to rest. And this church needs your relationship with God more than we need your volunteer hours. Let me say that again. This church needs your relationship with God more than we need your volunteer hours. That is the thing that relationship is what you must protect and what you must dedicate yourself to above all else. And if we do that, then I know that we will be doing God's kingdom work in this place. Because we're going to have a bunch of well-rested, clear-minded, and strengthened people ready to do whatever God does tell us to do. It's hard to jump into the practice of Sabbath. I wish I could just talk forever about this. Eventually, we're going to have a whole sermon series just on Sabbath. I guarantee it. But I'll finish with this. It's a hard jump to go from not practicing Sabbath at all, not building in intentional times of rest, to having a whole Sabbath day every single week. That's a big jump, right? But I encourage you, maybe think about Sabbath periods, Sabbath times, right? Setting aside a Friday evening and saying to your family, we're not going to do any activities that are work. We're only going to do things that are time together, that we can enjoy together, that we can rest together. Maybe it's something like a Sabbath season, saying, oh, you know what? Our 3 kids have been in 6 different sports for these last 4 months. Maybe for the next 3 months, we're not going to do any of those. We're just going to do the things that we have to do and then enjoy the rest of the time for ourselves. And then, at some point, eventually, as you allow God to lead you, sitting down with your spouse, with your kids, with whoever else needs to be a part of that conversation, and deciding as a family how how to make Sabbath happen, how to be committed to it together. Because you need rest. You need rest. God needs you to rest. And when you rest, you're going to be spending time with Him. In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen. As we continue in our worship this morning, know as always that this altar is open for you during our closing hymn. If you would like to have a time of prayer, you are invited to come forward. If you'd like me to pray with you, just raise your hand while you're here and I'll come be with you. If you'd like to just pray by yourself, keep your hand down, I'll leave you alone. Whether we're up here, whether you're in your seat, God is saying something to you today. God is calling you to something today. And if you're one and you don't think you have a relationship with Jesus, you don't know for sure if you know Him and have experienced that new life that He wants to give us, I can tell you today that I know that that is what He is calling you to this morning. He is calling you to come to know Him and to be in a relationship with Him. I hope that you will receive that invitation from Christ. And I hope that all of us will receive whatever calling it is He has given to us in this moment. Let's stand and sing together. This key fob right here, this goes to my car. The battery started dying in April. It has been completely dead since July. I have not replaced the battery. And you know what? Who cares? And we need to do a much better job of saying who cares about a lot more stuff. Because when we take the time for rest, when we take the time to spend with God and with our family, there's a bunch of little meaningless stuff that doesn't get done. That's countercultural. The world doesn't tell us to think that way. But God tells us to think that way. I hope that this morning, I hope God has moved in your hearts today. I hope God has triggered something in your minds and in your hearts. Maybe moving in a new direction, maybe adopt a different practice. I hope that our worship today has given you life. I hope it has given you life to the full. I'm looking forward to having potluck with you, so I hope you all make your way down to Fellowship Hall as we finish up. It's going to be a good time together. I hope you go from this place under the lordship of God our Father, in the grace of His Son, Jesus Christ, and in the power of the Holy Spirit, as disciples and followers of Jesus, who do not serve the false idols of this world, but serve Him and Him alone. Go in peace. Amen.